All right, Big Bang. Today is Thursday. It's January 4th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. So Tuesday, you really didn't get your fix of news, tinfoil topics, and whatnot. So we're doing that here today.
Everything's all messed up. Holiday schedule.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot went down in the last week or so that I feel like they tried to just slide under the rug while nobody was watching because we're all doing New Year's Eve and Christmas and everything like that. So we're going to get to it.
Yes, we're going to get to it, and I think it starts, surprise, surprise, with the whole Epstein stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, so we had our first document dump. So a judge, ruled to unseal all the names, all the documents, everything like that, and we had our first batch come out last night on January the 3rd, and it is one of those things. It was the first, at least the one that I saw, the PDF that I saw, was 943 pages. And that's just like the first. I think there could be as many as 200 different document dumps. And I read through a lot of it last night, just laying in bed late into the night. And it's a transcript largely of the deposition. So there was like leaks in the media about, oh my God, like Bill Clinton is mentioned 37 times. And if you were to just Google search the Epstein list, like all the headlines say like Bill Clinton and Donald Trump were mentioned in the docs. And then you go through it, and to me, so far, it's a little bit of a nothing burger. Okay, so we had already known about allegations about Bill Clinton. Stephen Hawking was there. There was a revelation that Michael Jackson was there, although the witness said they didn't witness him doing anything inappropriate. But as far as like the Bill Clinton stuff, where like I would say the right wing of Twitter and the internet and the country was almost, rooting for him to have done these horrible deeds. And there's no evidence or video or anything like that of Bill Clinton doing anything. It's none of the information about him is different. You did have a witness saying that the question was asked, did he ever mention Bill Clinton? And the witness replied that yes, Bill Clinton said to have, quote, liked them young, referring to girls, is what one of the answers to the lawyer's question was. But nothing like we have him on video, Bill Clinton wants this type of girl, like nothing new. I feel like we had heard that statement before because that was from a witness who had, or maybe even a victim that came forward. And they're just, that to me is like, okay, we knew that. There's nothing like they're going to storm in and arrest him based upon what was released so far. Maybe that's coming later, but so far, we haven't seen that. And then if you're reading the headlines, it's like, Trump named in this document. And the only mention of Trump in the document so far was kind of like exonerated him based on, did you ever see Trump at any of the properties? No. Did you ever have any contact with Trump? No. Did you ever, it was like he was never there, never did anything, never, according to this one witness. Now, that's one witness. Okay. Supposedly there's been, 30 years of Epstein running, the sex trafficking ring from Paris to New Mexico to the, Little St. James to his place in New York City to Ghislaine Maxwell's place in London. That he had these little, Florida. Yeah. So he had all these little places, and the one witness testimony had never seen Trump. And Trump has, it's weird to me that people are rooting for the people of the opposite party to be guilty. It's like you should just be rooting for the truth, or rooting for them to be innocent, which I guess you kind of want everybody to be innocent, but you don't, it's not like, it shouldn't be politically motivated. You should just be seeking the truth. So those headlines to me are very misleading based upon what's out there so far. It's just that, yes, he was mentioned in that document, but the reason he was mentioned was a lawyer was asking about him in the deposition, and the person replied no, that they never saw, never was there to their knowledge. So we have to wait for more and more to come out. But it was a little bit of like, we've been waiting for this stuff for 5 years now. Okay. So, or longer. And this first drop, which, there's supposed to be more coming out. I think there's been reports of some delays until maybe January 22nd, but there's going to be, sounds like the way that it's reading, or at least the way that it's read to me, is that there's going to be kind of a steady stream of document dumps coming out. But so far, not anything to get too excited about. Prince Andrew mentioned, there was a witness said that like he fondled her when she was underage, but like he's had a lot worse allegations tied to this than that. Participating in the orgies and, like Prince Andrew is fucking scumbag is what it sounds like. But again, like not a ton of new information on him necessarily either. Like we knew he was involved. We knew that he was there. He's got the picture of him and Ghislaine and a victim. Like the fact that he's on the list and was doing something inappropriate is not exactly new. Like I said, Michael Jackson was mentioned, but the witness said he did nothing inappropriate. David Copperfield, the musician or magician rather, supposedly there, no like concrete things of his actions, but just that he was there. Thomas Pritzker, so the Pritzker family, obviously huge in Chicago, Hyatt hotels, like they're worth billions. He was mentioned, but it's so far as, like I want the truth to come out on this because it's like the most fucked up thing and like the most blatantly corrupt, blatantly dirty, horrifying story that you can imagine. And it's just like we get a little trickle at a time, and we don't, and there's all kinds of shrouds of mystery and murder and all sorts of things, and we can get into that too with our second subject. But it's so far just not
what you expected. Well, it's a lot of documents too. Like there was a lot to sift through.
Yeah, there was a lot to sift through, but what the first 943 pages, and I'm not going to say I sat there and read all of them, but I read a lot. I read a lot scrolling through. And they're all out there. They're easy to find. I got a text from White Sox Dave saying couldn't find them. It's like, dude, like it's fucking everywhere. Okay. Like it's the easiest thing in the world to find. Like many people have like just uploaded the PDF and you just click on it and scroll through. Use Google.
So it either wasn't surprising because it was kind of old news of people you already knew that were there, or the people that were maybe new, it didn't say anything besides other than that they were there. It didn't say
right.
anything.
Like the Michael Jackson was like, oh, Michael Jackson was at Pedophile Island? No shit. Like not the most. It was almost more surprising that he was said to have not done anything in that particular instance. Doesn't mean he never did anything there, but that particular witness, that particular time, didn't witness him doing anything nefarious. So, but people are running with it on the internet, with jokes about Stephen Hawking being there and whatever, was it ADA compliant, all that kind of stuff. So, but that was like, so far, it's something that we'll have to continue to deal with because this story, we can move on to our second subject, which would be the video posted by Tucker on Twitter from Epstein's brother, Robert. Did you see this?
No, I did not. So this is his brother?
This is his brother being like, what the fuck happened? Because this is like a week before, he died a week before his trial was supposed to begin. And he was on suicide watch and they took him off. Then they said, he hung himself with a ligature, which is like, a piece of clothing from his cell. There's, blood around his neck, but no blood on the ligature. Then it's like, they removed him from there because they called the EMS. They called the fire department was there. Who moved the body? There's no record of that. Okay. That it was like, but they told me there was a record and it did start a documentation, but that's gone missing somehow, just like everything else related to this has gone missing. Then it's like, he's got the photos of him in the hospital. Why was he taken to the hospital? He's declared dead in his cell at the, there's no reason to bring him to the hospital. You would bring him to the morgue. Then it's like, there's pictures of him, at the hospital in a hospital gown type of thing. Well, that means you have this guy's dead body getting all stiffened up, still in his prison uniform. Means you have to take him undress him, which sounds like illegal if it's a crime scene. Remove him from that, put him in a hospital thing, stretcher him out of there, put him in a body bag. You know, it's like, what the fuck? And it's like the guards were asleep, that whole thing. So now you got the brother kind of releasing that looked like hidden camera footage to me through Tucker Carlson on Twitter. Everything about this entire thing stinks. Going back to when he was given a slap on the wrist in 2006, and the state's attorney who tried him, the prosecutor was like, on record being like, this goes above my, they said, this goes above the pay grade. So they're like, no one knows. Like, who the fuck was this guy? No one knows where his money came from. No one knows anything about him. He just like popped up out of thin air one day as a billionaire, effectively, and then was running in all these circles and supposedly was like filming people, and they had secret cameras. They're blackmailing people. It's like, who did he work for? Who were his clients? Who was he blackmailing? What did he get for that? And it's been it's like, this is one of those things where it's like all the things that we march about and protest about and complain about, there should just be people outside the Justice Department every single day until we get an answer to this, because it's so like blatantly lied about, covered up, fucked up, corruption. And it's like, what is the actual truth? Nobody knows. So that was something that came across. I mean, Tucker posted it, so I'm sure a shit ton of people saw it, but it's still like a fascinating little 2-minute video where it's just like none of the official stories line up with what happened that day. So
they never have, though.
I know.
Yeah,
I know, but
it's like more.
It's right, but it's like now we're waiting, Ghislaine's, in jail. We still don't really have anything. The other guy who was mentioned was this in the docs a lot, was this French guy who was a modeling agency guy who also, like Epstein, died in his jail cell while awaiting trial. Mysterious, suicide. So who the fuck knows? But it is kind of crazy. Third story, also related to politics and Trump, is people are, and kind of related to that episode we did a week or two ago. I don't even know how long ago that was, but the DNC where they rigged it for Hillary in 2016. They're up to the Democrats are doing everything they can to stop Donald Trump again. And I would deem this election interference, where Colorado and Maine so far have ruled to remove Donald Trump from the ballot unilaterally. There's no vote on this, but there's especially in Maine, where there was the Secretary of State, this woman, her name was Shayna Bellows, and Secretary of State, not an elected official. You're appointed by the legislator in Maine. In that case, she just unilaterally decides he's not going to be on the ballot in Maine. The primaries are coming up. They're coming up in like a month, and they've just voted to remove him. Trump, as of this morning, has officially, and today's the 4th, officially gone to the Supreme Court to ask them to overrule this. And the Colorado has already said that they will respect the Supreme Court's ruling and put him back on. Should it come to that, which I assume the Supreme Court would vote to put him on. There's a lot of people that, the reason Roe v. Wade passed is because, or was rescinded or whatever the ruling was on that, was because they have a Republican court now. So they'll have the majority. So I can't imagine the court would be like, yeah, that's what the 14th Amendment means. And you would need like a whole trial to show that, because they're citing this 14th Amendment has an insurrectionist clause, which is what Colorado and Maine are saying. Like, he tried to topple the government. There's no way he can serve in public office again. And that's, that hasn't been proven. Okay. So it feels like just a show, but it's to me, it's bad politics, because all you're going to do is fire up his base even more. See, like, they're trying to prevent me from being even on the ballot. You believe that shit? And so he's already appealed. I would assume that he would win that, but that is crazy. Michigan is the third state that is supposedly considering this, this 14th Amendment, but maybe they'll back off now that they're seeing the backlash and they're seeing that it probably wouldn't be held up in court. But this, the ballot thing it is so crazy. And like, that's what I said, like kind of off the top of the subject, like all we heard about in 2016 was election interference. Well, having one woman in Maine being like, no, you can't vote for that guy, he's not even going to be on the ballot. Sorry, I would deem that as election interference. If the person you want to vote for has been barred from getting votes based on your whim, and she had the woman in Maine has all kinds of like crazy tweets about him, going back to January 6th in real time, and she just hates him. But like, hating a person doesn't mean you get to kick them off the ballot, and that's kind of where it is right now. And that's going to be the ballot access in general is going to be a huge question for this election, because we have two quote unquote viable independent candidates with West and Cornel West and RFK Jr. So RFK Jr. is, he's had to sue multiple states. I think he's on officially in Utah, is on in a few. But the whole reason that he went independent was because the DNC, as we discussed in that previous episode, barred him from being on the ballot. Or if he is on the ballot in certain states, like we're like, all right, well, those states just don't count. They're invalid states because they went rogue and they're not doing what the DNC wants. So those delegates that you won don't count. So he went independent, and now it's like a big push for him to be able to have ballot access. So if people wanted to vote for him in November, they could. Can't believe we're in an election year already, by the way.
It is, yeah. It is crazy.
Yeah. And it will be kicking up.
When do the debates and everything start? Like when
debates have started.
Yeah, but like when is like
the head-to-heads?
Yeah.
Those are typically they're both after. So both parties will have a convention. The Democratic convention is actually here. It's at the United Center, and I believe that's in June or July. Republican one will be around the same time. And then you'll probably have like the Trump, Biden, Kennedy, possibly West debates, because it's all depending on how well you're polling. So I think there's like, you have to be above 12 or 15% to get on the main stage, like the final debates. And Kennedy is certainly above that now. He's polling, depending on what polls you look at, he's anywhere from 22 to 28%. So he should have access to be in those debates, and they'll probably do 3 unless Biden decides not to. And it would be, my guess would be maybe end of August or September, and then 2 in October. Usually there's 3. In my lifetime, there's been 3. And is the standard. Last time in 2020, I think they only did 1 or 2 because Trump got COVID, and it was COVID in general, so they were like not doing public events. And so I think, did they have 1 or 2? I think it was 2. I think they were supposed to have 3. 1 got canceled, and they ended up just having 2. So, and they'll typically be, September, October, a few weeks in between each one.
Here we go.
Yeah, buckle up. It's going to be something else. But that ballot access thing really does bother me. Like,
just because it's pretty blatant in that
we're supposed to, like, this is supposed to be of the people, for the people, by the people, and it's like, no, we're going to decide who you can vote for.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't those 2 states that it wouldn't really matter anyways? I mean, Michigan matters.
It's the principle of it.
Yeah, of course. It's the principle of it.
Right.
Yes.
That to me, like, me.
Yeah. No, I get it. And I'm not saying, like, I'm not trying to say it doesn't matter because of that, but it likely won't affect anything.
Typically, you're right. Typically, Maine is heavy blue, and Colorado, I don't know if you can quite put them in the blue column yet. They were historically always a red state. Then I think in 2008, Obama won it, and I think maybe the Democrats have won it every cycle since. I'd have to look that up, but I think they won it in both times with Obama. I think Hillary and Biden took it. So 8, 12, 16, 20. But it's always like, it's not one of these like, oh, like chalk up California, New York, or New Jersey, like they're going blue 100% of the time. Colorado is like more, probably still considered more purple. Like I think RFK and Trump would campaign kind of hard in Colorado, trying to get it to flip back. But yeah, you're right. Michigan is definitely a swing. So
that'd be a big deal.
That would be a huge deal. But it's like, like how it's going to go. Like if the Supreme Court says no, you can't do that, then he's going to be on it, and then it's like you just hit the hornet's nest for no reason.
Yeah,
The fourth story, another one that we've touched on before, Sam Bankman-Fried.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so SBF, obviously, what was even the name of his company? I'm blanking on it right now.
It was
they had their own little sex island.
They changed the name.
Yeah.
Fuck, it was 2 names.
They were a sponsor here for a minute, weren't
yes.
they? Yeah.
FTX.
FTX, yeah. And they were in bed with everybody, Tom Brady, Larry David, all these people, and he was just giving out millions of dollars for advertisements and whatever. But he was formally charged with 2 different cases. One was fraud, which that one, and initially these cases were supposed to be tied together. So you had illegal campaign finance charges against him, and then you had the fraud cases where it's like, hey, you stole billions from investors and try to create your own, all that kind of stuff, and he was found guilty on that. Friday before the holiday weekend, in between Christmas and New Year's, that Friday, the U.S. Attorney's Office, who was prosecuting Sam Bankman-Fried on the campaign thing, hey, we're dropping those charges. So it's just going to be the fraud case. We're not going to pursue this other thing at all, and just sweep that under the rug. Okay. So had you heard about that?
No.
Okay. So that's what I mean. To me, that's a pretty big story, because he donated millions and millions of dollars to I think it was 119 members of Congress. Okay. So both sides of the aisle, but he was on the record saying that he contributed to the right just to avoid scrutiny. Donated $10 million to the Biden 2020 election campaign alone, $10 million alone to that, $2 million to different, congressional districts, like huge amounts of money that was stolen. And some of the politicians that received campaign contributions from him have since given it back. Okay, so when they return those funds, like I don't know how you return it. Like where do you return it to? I don't know. I'd probably have to look into that. But some of them have, some of them just kept it. Okay, and so that to me is like, wait, so you went after him, and he fucked all these people, and he's going to go to jail for that. But in terms of all the illegal campaign stuff that he did to help 119 different members of Congress get elected, well, they might have to bring them into trial and open up their books and show what they're doing. You know what? Why don't we just drop those charges while nobody's looking? Because that was, again, holiday time. They had announced that the documents for Epstein were unsealed. They had all these other things going on, and then they just sweep that under the rug.
And it's definitely not a case where what will sometimes happen is they just drop the stuff that might be harder to harder to convict, I should say.
Yeah.
Rather than usually they just keep the easiest one. It'll lock them up for a long time.
They already got him on that. They already got him on the fraud. So it's not like they separate. You could say that was strategic to make sure they got him on something. Well, these are 2 separate cases, and they just dropped the one that could implicate members of Congress and the government. That to me, it's like, then who are you guys working for? Like, this is what I mean. It's supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people. It doesn't seem like it's for the people to me. If you're just like, hey, anybody who's in power, we're not going to bother. We're not going to, look into your books because, that could look bad on you. So we're just going to sweep that under the rug, and we're going to do it at a time where the story is going to be completely buried, which is fucked up. Then, fifth story stumbled out, and we're running out of time, so we'll make it quick. New York Times is suing Microsoft and Open A.I. for billions of dollars. Okay, so Do you know how the Open AI and all that works? It's the large language model. So when you're like, how does this thing pass the bar? How does this thing know everything? When you're looking into ChatGPT, how does it know everything? Well, it is scraping stories from the internet, books, articles, whatever, for fucking forever. Okay, like it's metadata that it can compute. Same thing, same way that we would do it. Okay, why do we look at the New York Times or any other publication? Because we want to know stuff. That's what they're doing on a massive scale. So the AI algorithms fucking know everything that's on the internet. Well, and they're embedding it into their software, okay, into their programming. Well, if you're using that data, that information from the New York Times and embedding it into a software, that is copyright infringement. So they're using that data. Now, there's been all these other publications are looking, they're like, hey, like we will license it to you, Open A.I, Microsoft, for a fee, but like you can't just have it, and they're trying to settle it out of court. The New York Times was pursuing that route and apparently got frustrated and decided they sued them just like, I think this week. And that story hasn't been given a lot of coverage, but I think that's a huge thing, because if you're suing them for billions, because the way it works is that the law says you're allowed to receive $150,000 per instance of copyright infringement. So if it's every New York Times article forever, that's on the internet, they're able to scrape and put in there. Well, that's a shit ton of money. So is this going to be the thing that stops AI and ChatGPT? Maybe it does. Maybe it could, or they divert a different way, or maybe it's the thing that if ChatGPT is profitable enough for Open AI, for whoever is implementing it, maybe that's a way that they save the actual newspapers, because like, hey, we had this steady, consistent flow of information, but then it's like the people who wrote it probably get fucked as AI gets better. So I that's something that I'm actually like very interested in.
That is interesting
to see how that actually shakes out. And the New York Times does have a history of bringing court cases like this. Not like this. This is unique, but they're often the tip of the spear, kind of protecting the content, the media landscape at large. So it makes sense that it's the Great Lady, it's the most distinguished paper, that they're the ones that are actually going at Microsoft and Open A.I for this. So it's in like the Southern District Court of New York. So we'll see how that plays out. But it is something that I find that story like fascinating to see how those companies pivot, if they lose, or if this pauses AI development, these large language model developments, until they can find a resolution. So
could it be the one thing to stop AI in its tracks?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Money always wins.
Is this the return of the hard copy?
Yeah. Get that ink on your fingers. We're coming back.
So they would just scan that in and take it in.
Put it in a PDF. yeah, exactly. And then the last thing, we won't really get into it, but U.S. debt, $34 trillion. Big number. I saw this diagram about it, how it like what $1 million looks like in $100 bills, and what 30, and they like go up to like, all right, what 10 million, what a billion, what 100 billion, and then what 34 trillion looks like when you stack it all up. It's like the Sears Tower. Like if you took $100 bills and like stacked them all up on top of each other to make 34 trillion, it would be like that big.
But what does it mean?
It means your dollar is going to be worth less than ever. Like it is like actually like not a good thing. But then maybe it doesn't. Like we are in like crippling debt. I don't know how we get out. It's beyond me. It seems like the whole system's fucking broken. But like $34 trillion is just like a shock number, and it does hurt the economy, and it does weaken the dollar, and it's not a coincidence that our dollar's weakest it's ever been. And you're looking around the world, and these other countries are like, let's fuck the US dollar. Let's trade in our own currency. And because we always benefit from, China does a deal with Russia. Well, the deal's has historically always been done in US dollars. Same thing with Saudi Arabia. Same thing with everybody. Everything's always been tied to the dollar. More and more of these countries are going away from that model, and that does hurt our economy too. So,
well, shout out to our guy down in was it Chile?
Mile, Argentina.
Yeah, Argentina.
Yeah. He is actually he's slashing. He's getting to work.
Yeah.
So I feel like we had I like the guy. I feel like I'm interested to see how it plays out with him. But like we titled that episode in a weird way that made people think that I was personally calling him a madman. It was like he calls himself a madman.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's mad. He's a crazy guy. Look at his fucking haircut. But he is like he's getting to work. He's eliminated a lot of, like the things that he's able to eliminate through the stroke of a pen. He's doing it. So shout out Mile.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, then. We could wrap it up. That's it for today. That's it for this week. We'll be back on Monday with the draft. We'll see you all then.